Good afternoon, dear friends. We are still with you in our daily format, analyzing the situation on the front lines. Well, we continue to analyze the situation on the front lines because peace is still far away and hostilities continue. Let's open the map together. Before we begin, I would like to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps the channel grow. I thank everyone who has already subscribed. So friends, on February 23rd, Defender of the Fatherland Day in Russia, it is extremely relevant to discuss the situation in the Kursk region, where real defenders are fighting for their land. Then we'll talk about the breakthrough of Russian troops into the Sumi region, where they have advanced quite significantly. If we count from the starting lines, the breakthrough is almost 7 kilometers. But let's start with the Kursk region. So what's happening here? First of all, yesterday for the first time, objective control data appeared, namely video footage from Cherkasskaya Konopelka, not only from there, but also from the area near the dam. And in these videos, Russian soldiers can be seen moving calmly. I want to emphasize that this is important. The footage is from a Ukrainian drone. From their side, now we can say with 100% certainty that both Cherkasskaya Konopelka and the dam are under full and undisputed Russian control. So, to sum up, what do we have in the end? The Ukrainian armed forces lost 2 mechanized battalions here, near Cherkasskaya Konopelka, and in the end they gained nothing. Everything they managed to capture on the first day of the offensive, they have already lost. This includes Fansayevka and Cherkasskaya Konopelka. Yes, they still control the Kurakhove and a few fields in front of Cherkasskaya Konopelka, totaling about 4 square kilometers. That's it. Was it worth losing 36 units of burned-out equipment and 2 battalions? Well, perhaps Sursky or Zelensky can answer that. Let's move on. The main intensity of hostilities in the Kursk region is still unfolding in the area of the villages of Sverdlikovo and Lebedevka in the Sudzha district. As I've already told you, the Ukrainian armed forces lost Sverdlikovo. They tried to organize a counterattack here, twice. The most recent attempt was just the other day. As a result, an entire platoon of the Ukrainian armed forces was lost. In Lebedevka, there is also progress. Battles are now taking place in the center of the village. Half of the settlement is under Russian control. This result was achieved in just 2 days of intense fighting. If the Ukrainian armed forces are eventually driven out of the village, and this will happen sooner or later, then that's it. An 8-kilometer stretch of road to Sudzha will be completely open. But even more interesting and significant news is coming from the Sumi region, where Russian troops, in a very limited contingent, have managed to advance deep into the area. And in fact, this could decide everything in the Kursk region. I'll tell you and show you everything now. Sumi region. A few days ago, I told you how, after capturing Sverdlikovo, Russian troops crossed the border with Ukraine in this sector and began advancing into the Sumi region. Now, a couple of days later, we can draw the first conclusions. First of all, on the first day of the offensive, Russian assault groups reached the outskirts of the village of Novenkaye. But this was expected, since the village is close to the border, less than a kilometer away, to be precise, a little over 800 meters. On the first day, they reached the outskirts. On the second day, they entered the village. It's a small village, just a couple of dozen houses, so taking control of it wasn't difficult. If you enter, you essentially control it. But a much more significant success, and I admit unexpected even for me, came from the other side, from the direction of Nikolaev Darina. You can see it here. This is an American map. I haven't touched or colored anything. They did it themselves. From the direction of Nikolaev Darina, Russian assault troops made a 7-kilometer push and reached Basovka. This is an important village because it's much larger and was previously used by the Ukrainian army as a logistical hub for transferring reserves to the Kursk region, specifically to the Sverdlikovo area. Now the Ukrainian side, as usual, denied everything, claiming everything is fine. From Russian military analysts, there were mixed voices, but that was on the first day when there was a lot of informational noise and it wasn't clear what was happening where. Now everything has settled down and we have accurate data. The data is as follows. Basovka is currently a grey zone, meaning there is no full control over the village by either the Russian army or the Ukrainian armed forces, At the same time, Russian troops are now pressing on the village from two sides. From the north, thanks to this 7-kilometer breakthrough, and from the east, where the movement is coming from Novenkia. The total depth of Russian advancement into the Sumi region is currently 4 kilometers. Although in reality, it's not the kilometers themselves that matter, but the purpose of this operation. And it is being conducted to defeat the entire Ukrainian grouping in the Kursk region. Now, the main road, Unakivka-Sudja, which carries about 90% of all supplies for the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kursk region, is under tight drone control. Everything moving along it is being destroyed. And such control of the road became possible precisely thanks to the advance into the Sumi region, because from these positions, from Novenki, for example, it's only 5.5 kilometers to the highway. This is an ideal range for FPV drones to operate. And if we manage to take full control of Basovka, then it's only 2.5 kilometers from there to the highway. Even a bit less, about 2 kilometers and 200 meters. And the main goal of the entire operation, well, that's one thing. I would even call it the minimum plan. The maximum plan is to move from Basovka to link up with units in the Kurilovka area and create a hellish cauldron. You see, right? If we connect, there's currently a 12-kilometer gap. If it closes, it will create a cauldron for the entire Ukrainian Armed Forces UAF grouping in the Kursk region. The task is, of course, difficult, but not impossible. Let's start with the Kupinsk direction. On the western bank of the Oskil River, Russian troops continue to successfully expand the zone of control in the area of the settlement of Topoly. Advances by forward Russian groups are reported at distances of 1 to 1.5 kilometers into the enemy's defenses. As a result, the entire western and central part of the village has come under Russian control. The UAF maintains a partial presence on the eastern and northern outskirts. This information is confirmed by footage published by the Ukrainian side, showing attacks on forward Russian positions using FPV drones. At the same time, on the Krasny Lyman front, as a result of decisive actions, the settlement of Novolyubovka has come under the full control of the West troop grouping. This was reported today in the daily briefing by the Russian Ministry of Defense. Next, the Seversk direction. Here, Russian troops have expanded the zone of control north of the settlement of Verkhnekamenskoye, advancing up to 1 kilometer towards the Plotka Pond. This information is confirmed by footage published by the Ukrainian side, showing attacks on forward Russian positions using FPV drones. Additionally, according to available data, Russian units, through persistent assault operations, managed to dislodge the UAF from an important stronghold located at the foot of the Belogorovsky chalk quarry, north of the settlement of Belogorovka. It is reported that the elimination of this fortified area will allow Russian troops to fully clear the village and continue advancing deeper into the enemy's defenses on this section of the front. Next, the Pokrovsk direction. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that, as a result of successful offensive actions, the settlement of Nadezhdinka has come under the full control of the center troop grouping. Additionally, it is reported that Russian troops have straightened the front line between this village and the neighboring settlement of Sribne, simultaneously approaching the settlement of Preobrazhenko from the eastern side. Next, the Kurakhove direction. On the northern flank, Russian troops are finishing the assault on the settlement of Andreevka. Advances by Russian assault groups of up to 2 kilometers have been reported in the single-story residential area towards the western outskirts of the village, where the UAF maintains its presence in only a few houses on Sologub Street. This information is confirmed by footage published by the Ukrainian side, showing attacks on forward Russian positions using FPV drones. At the same time, on the southeastern flank, the settlement of Ulakli has come under the full control of Russian forces. This information is confirmed by footage published by the Russian side, showing Russian soldiers raising the state flag in various parts of the village. Additionally, the entire territory to the east, up to the settlement of Daknaya, and to the south, up to the settlement of Zelenovka, has come under Russian control. Thus, it can be stated that the Russian armed forces have eliminated the so-called Kurakhove pocket. Next, the South Donetsk direction. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that, as a result of active advances and decisive actions by units of the Vostok troop grouping, the settlements of Novoselka and Novocheretovataya have come under full Russian control. Furthermore, according to incoming reports, forward Russian groups have advanced further north from Novocheretovataya and have approached the neighboring settlement of Skuchnoye. It is also reported that assault groups of the 60th Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces, having broken through the UAF defenses, entered the settlement of Burlatskoye, where they engaged in combat with Ukrainian troops on the southern outskirts of the village. On the Kharkiv, Chasiv Yar, and Donetsk directions, there are no visible changes. We will continue to monitor the situation.